on your ideas for a while, and you know, before or while writing the book, I imagine you were a parent, right? While you were writing.
So I had written shorts, and like that's it. Like short stories, like basically my process was like start writing something. Oh, this is good, and then I just keep writing and writing until I get like a first draft done. And of course, the first draft's not good, but I could just like, you know, the muse calls me, and I'm like, bam, right in there. I get that real fast, and that happened to, you know, whatever time. Not when you have kids. And you know, no, that's not how it works. And it's hard. And I mean, I've said this is like, you've got a tiny human now. And it was like, I remember, because I was stay at home, my wife stayed at work. I was like, okay, my job is flexible. I can work at night. Yeah. And I remember there was one day I had two at the time. So I had a 6-month-old, a 2-year-old. And I tried to write one email, a really important email, like a really important email. And then I was trying this email, and it took all morning. I just lost my, you know, mind with them. Yeah. I was like, you know what? No, I know that I'm on duty, and I'm on duty. I'm hanging out with kids, and I don't try to get anything done. And literally every big kind of moment in this kind of, you know, the trajectory of the book, my kids were doing something like just like literally, like when I got the call from my agent that, like, you know, Canongate's interested, you know, they're fighting over like a plastic egg or something and like trying to murder each other. And like, you've got to be kidding. Can I please hear my life's dream happen? Is that okay, guys? They don't care. That's the universe telling you it does not matter. Like in 7 billion years, the sun will be swallowed by the earth. So calm down, son. So that's like, so take those lessons. But yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, now they're older. Like you said, I think you got a 7-month-old. Yeah.
7 months, yeah.
Man, if you can get an email done, like count that as a success. But just know that that writer's brain is still kind of at work and observing, and you've got material. Like, you're gonna, and that's what I'm writing about now. Is just like the relationship with my wife has changed, my father, like, you know, my kids, and that's really interesting. And it will come, it will get easier. That's all I say, man. You are in the thick of it, and just kind of really enjoy it. And like now they're at school, so when they go to school, like, man, I am right there at the desk trying to get things done, and it's tough because there's still book stuff happening, and it's, you know, your greatest hope is it's a success, but success is a pain because then you got to like write copy, and you got to do this, you got to go to this meeting, and and like guys, I just want to like go hang out with my imaginary friends. Like, you know, I want to worry about, like, you know, is this comma in the right place? Am I overdoing it by describing a fly crawling across the sill rather than, you know, walking? You know, that kind of stuff. That's the meat. And it's fast. So that's it. It's gotten easier, but I would say, like, man, just totally carve yourself out of space, even if it's a day. Like, I needed just a day to, like, you know, just scribble. I'm in a better mood. Everyone's happier. My wife is a very smart woman. She's like, you're being a bit of an ass. Like, let's figure out how there's one day where you just go and play with your imaginary friends. And that is, I think that's really useful. That made me a better parent. Even if it was just, again, like just being there, scribbling, or, you know, reading and that kind of thing. And that balance is really important because, it's that much harder. You got to be a good partner, you know, a good father, a decent human being, and a good writer. And, like, you know, it's just that much harder.
It is. I mean, and so I'm going to go back to the coward then, because I'm interested in this response I had to, like, how tender I felt towards the father in this book.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to assume that you had your own kind of hang-ups with your dad. I think all of us have some hang-ups with our dads, you know, like, you know, people at the end of the day, and something that comes with, you know, the perspective of parenthood. As you do look at your own parents, and you're like, like, I really have softened a bit, like, on both my parents, you know, like, oh, wow, you did this. And
I mean, again, it comes from that generosity of, like, just knowing that. And I really wrote the heart of it without kids. And I was like, man, I really nailed that. And I just think it came from like trying to understand where this character come from. But really, it's actually down to the plot. Like Jack, the father, has made his peace.
Yeah.
You know, he understands what happens.
Yeah.
And then Jared has not. And that's just like good tension. That's good writing, is you throw this guy who hasn't made amends and kind of like, yeah, life gave me a really crappy deal and I'm pissed. And the other guy, the dad was like, yep. It ain't about fair. And I think he says something about that. Like this life ain't about deserves. Yeah. And that's true. And you seek justice, seek it in the other life because it won't be here. And he's that's what he needed to survive. And then putting those two men together, that's just good. That's just good, fiction. That's good plot. So yeah. But yeah, he's great. He's a pain in the ass, but he's great. Yeah.
Yeah, because he never really apologizes for like the childhood kind of trauma, like because he felt like he wasn't really there. He felt quite absent. And
that was another me like thinking about what is the narrative between addiction and bad writing talks about bad writing goes about the kind of like descent and then the recovery. And I was like, that's BS. Like you can get used to anything. There's kids in Syria, there's kids in Ukraine who are just processing it, It's when you change the status quo and when those poor kids then are told like this didn't happen, that's what F's them up, and that's what I was thinking about. The family is dysfunctional, but they're operating even though there's two alcoholic parents. It's when the dad gets sober and the status quo changes and Jared's used to, this kind of chaos, and then the chaos is no longer there and Jack is really trying to be, that's when it explodes and kind of incredible. And that to me was a more interesting, fascinating story about that. Like when you're an addict, you're always an addict. Now you have to be an addict who can't use, and you got to live your life, which is hard, and not, use. And that's to me the more interesting story. So yeah, that's what I try. And that's what I try to write about that character. And again, telling the story of addiction that doesn't follow the stereotypes, just as like the story of disability to like avoid the stereotypes. So,
yeah. There's so many traps to fall into, aren't there?
Yeah. And it's, yeah.
I mean, like, how about like meeting people and like kind of meeting your readers and that, like, I mean, I think I'm asking this question as well because I've met readers who've said things about me, like personal things about me that have been based on like what they've read of the work. So, I got someone come up to me and just kind of say something like, "Oh, I thought you'd be more deaf," like, "Oh, I thought you'd be more disabled." "Oh, I thought like." And I was like,
how disappointing.
Yeah. I was so disappointed. I thought you can, you're not what I thought you'd be. Like, and this has happened a handful of times now, and it's so. Yeah. What I'm trying to be mindful of is like I really want to capture and take the opportunity in those moments to like just say something a bit smarter than I have been. Because what I've been doing, right, I've been getting defensive. I've been like, I'm like apologizing. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Well, like basically, I mean, I start talking about like hearing aid technology and the years and years and years of speech therapy and all of this background stuff I've had, But then
this is the confidence trick of the identity and kind of shoving us in these little corners and being like, so that there's only one type of like, there's this identity called deafness, and it's this little band there, this narrow band in between the disabled experience, and that's what I mean, depends what mood I'm in. Like if I'm kind of channeling character Jared, I'm an ass, and there's other times where I just want out of the conversation, and like the one I get is, and I don't know if I mentioned it in the book, but like and I can see it like a mile coming. I can see, oh, oh, yeah, this one's going to say it. Here it comes. And it's like, I was in a wheelchair for 3 months. And it's like, congratulations. It has nothing to do with me. I couldn't care less. The other, yeah, you know.
Yeah. I often get the, I know what it's like to be deaf because I've been on an airplane, and you know what it is.
Yeah.
Like, you know, for 9 hours, my ears didn't pop. I've had many of those, and the colds. Oh yeah, I've had a cold. Oh, now I know how you feel, right?
Yeah. And then, and it's very odd. Instead of like going like, what is his experience? You know, like, because that's the exciting thing for me. You know, and I don't know what that is, and actually, it's interesting. Because I think it's just that kind of that same urge to be seen. Like, I have also had trauma, and maybe they're not doing it in the right way. Like, you know, it's kind of like, and it's really interesting when I kind of like, I do the same thing where like, you know, like, so now I'm getting, because I'm I'm a writer with been identified as with a disability. The publishers send me tons of disability books, which is fine. I don't seek them out. I just read books. And I've read some really amazing books that I probably wouldn't have picked up because I'm like, man, what do I need to know? But you know, you get some of them, and you're like, it's not disabled. Like, you know, I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, but at the same time, I do understand. Yeah, like you say, I do understand one's need to identify, want to identify and connect with someone. But it's interesting that it's such a default. But then at the same time, I understand the flip side to that, which is like, you want to kind of protect and preserve, or in some ways curate a community. You want to see and find people who you want, who you can connect with. But there's still a kind of psychological thing there that I think that deserves more examination. Like, I feel like it's interesting that, we're talking about a default response.
And I remember this one woman. We were in like it was a group of us, and she had quite a profound stutter. And, she was really open to kind of educate people. Yeah. And I was like, man, I'd be like, I don't want to talk about, like, and that was really, and I remember being like, that's not me, but I'm glad she's cool, that she's out there doing the work. And I'm kind of like, where am I? Maybe I'm too far to one side, and maybe I should be a little bit. Then again, I'm just like, man, I don't have time. I got kids.
The kids thing is very true. My tolerance for general
exactly. So
fuckery is like, okay, I got kids, go home.
And that's it. So I don't know the answer, and I'm listening for and I'm watching for other people to see how they interact, and like what am I comfortable with, as somebody. I've written this book, and I want it to be judged on the book. Is the book work? But inevitably you're going to be, people want, this is, the what do they call it? The USP, your unique selling point, that kind of thing. And I mean, I get it, and I'm fine with it, but it's also like, I'm mostly fine with it, but like, I kind of like, does the work work? Does the work? Yeah, that's good. So I should say, sorry, if anyone has any questions, because I've been very selfish with Jared's time, energy, and generous talent. So if anyone does have any questions for Jared, and it could be about, the book, or if you haven't read the book, it could be about, anything we've been discussing, anything that you're curious to know more about. We've only got a few minutes left, so it would be good if there's anyone out there who would like to also enjoy the company. Yeah, just put it in the chat box, and ask anything. I mean, so I mean, I can ask you a question.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I mean, so kind of our stories are that we have like crossed paths. I lived in the UK for 20 years. I'm American, but I moved to the UK. You're British. You moved to the US, and I think you kind of live. So, I mean, what are the kind of big kind of, in terms of just kind of like maybe kind of the writing culture, the publishing world, like, you know, kind of the culture, maybe even kind of like, you know, the culture, like the poetry culture, because that's a subset of a subset of a subset. So, yeah. What have you kind of observed as kind of differences, kind of like going back, you know?
I have observed, I keep getting, I don't want to, and this is something that my American family accused me of doing, and I totally agree with them. They're like, stop like attacking me with my culture. But like, I will say that like, I really felt a bit like, I've really been hoodwinked, man. Like from the outside, I was really like, America, the lights, the shining, glistening lights. And I get there and I'm living there and I'm like, holy shit, this place is going to kill. Like, I'm actually going to die. I'm actually going to die. Like I've seen some pretty horrific, I've seen stuff here. Like, and that's before, you know, I won't even get into it. It will take too long. But like, even, you know, I've got even closer to death or as close to death as I lived in South Africa at one point and saw some heavy stuff there too. But I guess it was like it surprised me, like this, like there's just the culture which is like this kind of relentless hustle, which I kind of had some idea of, but then when I like now got the tax burden, the insurance thing, I'm like, whoa. So just on that very basic level, it's been a bit of a shock. And just to say that UK isn't that much better. I mean, we've got free healthcare. I think that's the biggest thing we've got going really in that sense. For now. But, I mean, I think we're gonna lose it. That's on this way out.
When I first moved to Scotland, so I lived in Scotland for 4 years, literally my first question, I was on like message boards. And I was like, in Scotland, what can kill you? And that's a genuine question. Because I mean, I grew up in Florida and Texas, one person was like, well, we got this snake, and if you're a baby, it would kill you. and then somebody else said the Scots.
I mean, the third thing was like the Loch Ness monster. You fall.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's an intent, and it's really. And I remember in a workshop there was this English poet who wrote about this urban fox, as it was this like really dangerous thing, and I just giggled through the whole thing. I'm like, I mean, like I've actually swam near alligators unintentionally, but like. That's so true. This
is how I'm different now. I would have joined in the laughter. Your laughter that you're having, I would have joined in. Whereas before, I would have like sat there like to the fox. Would have been like, yeah, that fox.
Ooh,
that
fox the Minky fox. Yeah, what is this? Minky fox? What is he a metaphor? I was like, that is, and he tried to make it some dangerous thing. I was like, my cat beats the foxes up in London. Like, no, I'm not having this.
I mean, yeah, because they're evoking like the Ted Hughes and all the kind of literary fox symbolism. It's all kind of like English folklore as well. So I know that there's that stuff going for it too. But you're right. Like you're trying to create a sense of danger and impending doom to someone who genuinely has like, it's basically like a lot closer to those genuine dangers, like guns. There's a few thing I'm still not used to. Yeah, I'm still not used to it. Like I was living in New Orleans and I was just walked into a supermarket and this guy walked in with two handguns and like the strap thing, and it just immediately like made me nervous. But and it was so interesting. Like I turned to my wife and I'm like, "Are you nervous right now?" And she's like, "No, no." Like, this is not. This is something else. So, I don't want to become that guy, that annoying Brit who kind of too much to say about American culture. But just to say, like, I think the other part of your question was about the poetry, and it's so like I feel enriched overall, like by the poetic literary landscape of of America, like, you know, and being able to kind of be part of that and get to call American poets peers, and you know, and build that on what I've learned from the English poetry world. Overall, I think I'm a richer, wider scoped poet for that. You know?
I absolutely agree. I became an American writer by moving to the UK. And it's funny, like having a book published by a British publisher, America just was like, oh, it's you know, you're a British writer, so you might not get this, you know, the attention. And it's just kind of fascinating. Like, read the first page. You know, I'm a local boy, and it's just really good. But yeah, it was just made me really think about language and kind of cultures in terms of like prose. I just fell in love with kind of, you know, the British Isles, kind of UK and you know, Britain and Ireland, and just that really kind of obsession with precision. And I've taken that with me, and I've brought that to a very American voice. And now, like, learning French and being like, you know, just made me really kind of think about language again. And I'll never be proficient in French. I'll always sound terrible. And my daughter already, after a year, is mocking my pronunciation in a very French way, I should add. And very condescending.
Wow.
But it's beautiful. But to me, it's enriching my process. Whereas the attitude of it is that you've somehow removed yourself from the tradition. And I just think that's, and I think maybe maybe more so in America is very kind of inward looking in that regard.
I think the British people have been indoctrinated with this idea of like, and this is from like the Beatles from like the 60s, of like, you gotta break the American market, you gotta, you know, and that's a complete myth. Like that whole, like, there isn't really, you know, like you say, if you're a writer and that's the kind of creature you are, you know, it's about language, and it's about how you interact, you know, with, like you say, with the culture, with literature, with, like, that's what it's about, you know, and you grow through that, and that kind of ends up in your work in you know, in an interesting way. And so, like, that whole thing about, you know, how you talk about the industry, like the literature industry, is very different to, I think, how we talk about our actual practice and well-being and you know, sensibilities, like as people like word-based entertainers, you know, word-based.
God, don't say that out loud. They'll start using that.
I'm a word-based entertainer.
you can see some marketing guys, little hairs stand up. Like, ooh, entertainment. There's money in entertainment.
I think we've got to come to the end because I just a 3-minute warning about 25 minutes ago.
I think it's time to let y'all go back to your game.
All right.
But if you had anything to end with.
No, just thank you for hosting us, and it was a great. Basically, you guys got a glimpse of what our chat in the pub would be like if we were in the same continent. So this is brilliant. It's really good.
Yeah. Thank you, Greenlight Books. You are genuinely one of my favorite bookstores. Anytime I'm in New York, that's literally one of the bookshops it makes sure I hit. This has been great to share your platform. Thank you.
Wow, that's very kind of you. Thank you. This was a great event. It really felt like we were in a pub listening to y'all talk. Thank you for the conversation. Folks at home, make sure to pick up a copy at the store or online. The Coward, available now, hardback. Also, we do have, I checked, a couple of Raymond's books in store as well. So check that out as well. And this is going to be available on YouTube in a couple of days if anyone wants to share it. And thanks. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.